Raelana Misfit was a creature that never much understood the ways of people. They would say and do funny things like, "Eat your greens, there's starving children in Africa who could be eating that," like it was meant to be encouraging. Or they'd tell her to put on shoes when there really wasn't any need to be wearing any. People also liked to run around and be on time for things that didn't even seem that entertaining. So Raelana didn't think much of their advice. Being sent off to work with a briefcase and suit didn't seem to look like it was something much to look forward to, but everyone else seemed to be doing it regardless. One day, Raelana was looking at a ladybug and playing around in the dirt when she came across a peculiar-looking stone. It had funny symbols carved into it and changed colours in the light. She picked it up and it felt warm and smooth in her hand. "Oh, thank goodness you found it! I thought I'd lost it for good." A funny-looking lady came bustling up, looking more than a little flustered. "For good? Why is it so good if you care so much?" thought Raelana to herself, and she instinctively clutched the stone tight in her hand. It was hers, after all. She had found it. With a ticking trench coat and a magpie peeping out from behind one ear, the funny-looking lady held her hand out, reaching for the stone. "What stone? This is mine," Raelana responded, backing away. She had just found it herself. This wasn't fair. The funny-looking lady huffed and held her hand out again. She was right, though. Raelana had found the stone. It was hers. "How about a stone for a stone?" the lady asked. Her magpie cackled while her hand rooted around in her ticking trench coat's pockets. "I have so many here that you might like." Raelana crossed her arms and pursed her lips. Why should she give up her stone when this lady already had so many? "But it's mine," she insisted. The ticking was growing harsher, more insistent. "Well, what do you want then? That stone is very useful and precious to me, as I use it to help make things and situations appear." "Are you a witch?" Raelana asked. "Not quite. Just a fairy godmother. We network and orchestrate turns of events that make sure things might happen to the right people." Raelana had been warned about witches and fairies. Be careful around people who knew how to play with the causes of reality. "I would like to be like you. I want to help people and change events as well." The fairy's eyes flashed and her teeth gleamed as the stone was dropped into her hands. "A foolish choice to be made so flippantly," she remarked, "but it has been made all the same," and she dropped a shiny metal-looking piece of rock into Raelana's hands, along with a piece of parchment, sealing the deal. From that day onward, Raelana read books and studied to become as powerful as she possibly could. She looked for the fairy godmother wherever she went, though she never saw her again, and she talked to all kinds of people to see what they knew and what connections she could make. "Don't you want a castle? Or to be married to someone rich and powerful?" Raelana was asked, as she grew older and was asked what she wanted to do with her life. "You have the chance to change everything, why not take it?" "But I did," Raelana would answer. Working and studying hard non-stop was not an easy choice, and Raelana was starting to see results. "And boys are silly, I don't need a marriage to try and save me." Her eyes twinkled, pockets heavy from the tips and tricks she was learning as she went along in life. People didn't have to understand her. Their opinion didn't change where she was planning to go. So when the time came when Raelana tried to use her knowledge, why was no one prepared to listen to her? Raelana would never forget the day the bombs fell like rain overnight. Harshly jolted awake, eardrums screaming, sirens going, it was hell on earth. Buildings decimated, lives taken. There was panic in the streets as no one could tell where the death was coming from. Pulling on people's coats and jackets, Raelana tried her hardest to get them off the roads and out of harm's way, but no one would listen. The next morning, Raelana wasn't even sure it was morning. Fog and ash hung thick in the air, blotting out the sun, shrouding the bodies in the streets. Raelana thought she saw an outline of someone far off in the distance, watching her as she tended to the sick and dying. That someone looked somewhat like the fairy godmother, but when she looked again, they were gone. "We need to try and get underground," she would say, and people looked at her like she was mad. "If we make shelters under the grass and trees, the screaming death won't be able to hurt us so much." Thankfully, a few people listened, because any advice was better than none. After the screaming death came the starving death. With the bombs taking out everyone's homes and gardens, there was little food left. We need to conserve our resources and start planting gardens with what we have left. If we hunt sparingly, it will help get us through in the meantime. And this time, people listened, sort of. They conserved their resources alright, but they weren't sharing with their neighbours, and the gardens weren't all getting planted because people didn't want to sacrifice what little food they could be eating. Raelana sighed and got to work planting her own garden. Those that built dens and strongholds underground came and helped, and at one point a food parcel was gifted by hands that glittered with a stone from a faraway time. Raelana never quite saw who the gifter was, but she was grateful all the same. After the starving death, there was the burning death. People's desperation to flee starvation and eke out the life they had before drove them to raid and plunder the forests that were providing them animals to hunt. For a small while, things were getting back on track again. But as always when people do, the boundaries get pushed further and further, until one day you wake up and there's almost nothing left. "What have you done?" Raelana exclaimed. While she had been planting her garden, people were pillaging and decimating what was left. The place was a disaster. "Oh, what do you know? All you do is run from life and hide in your books. All we are doing is trying to survive." Raelana didn't know what to say to that. All she had been doing was trying to help. There came no more deaths after that. After being bombed, starved and burned, people had almost died themselves out. Those that were left packed up and moved somewhere else. Somewhere no doubt more burnable, raidable and pillageable. With her house in tatters and garden beseeching for shade and water, Raelana ran her hands raggedly through her hair. "All foolish choices, made so flippantly," someone remarked, and a magpie cackled from behind. "I don't know what more I can do," Raelana exclaimed frustratedly. "I have learned, researched and strived so hard, and people still won't see what's in front of them." "It's a shame, isn't it?" the fairy godmother replied. "We can do so much, but at the end of the day, unless other people care to, it's like trying to hold back the tide." She reached an old and worn hand over and pressed an even older, worn stone into Raelana's tired palm. The stone had funny symbols carved into it. It seemed to change colour in the light. Perhaps it might be time to consider a new alternative. The words stuck in her throat and grated bitter against her teeth as she spoke them forth. "You might not need a marriage to try and save you, but the strength of people's hearts and attention might be something worth considering."